They called it a grave. Not a planet, not a memory, just a grave. Earth's remains drifted in slow orbit around its cracked core, a mist of scorched satellites, shattered megastructures, and bones, both metal and human. No species visited, no salvagers dared linger. The radiation storms were legend, and the silence more terrifying than any warning beacon. So when the Alari scouting fleet entered Sol's ruins on a routine patrol and saw movement, they assumed it was debris. They were wrong. The debris turned, with intent. The ship didn't match any records, no clean lines, no elegance. It looked like a wounded god had stitched its pieces together out of rage and desperation. Its hull was a patchwork of old orbital plates, battleship bones, even chunks of lost cities welded into armour. A single, jagged insignia glowed from its prow. An old Earth flag, burned and faded, barely visible through soot and age. Its name, scrawled in 6 different languages half missing, RESOLUTGN. The Aelary commander Sunvel ordered a full scan. Her crew laughed at the relic's appearance until it fired. The energy signature was unfamiliar. The weapon, not elegant. It didn't pierce, it ripped. The Alari lead cruiser split like paper soaked in acid, venting glowing gas and crew into the black. By the time the second ship reacted, the human warship had already moved, gliding silently like a ghost through its own debris cloud. It didn't broadcast demands, it didn't threaten, it just kept firing, and it never once turned away. They say the final human warship wasn't built in a dry dock, it was forged, born from the wreckage of orbital rings and city fortresses, crafted by the hands of the last Earthborn engineers, most of whom died sealing its core. Its AI was stitched together from broken satellites, half-mad archives, and battlefield memories uploaded by dying soldiers. It didn't have protocols for diplomacy. It didn't even have a word for surrender, because the people who made it never lived long enough to teach it those things. By the time Sul went fully dark, the resolution was already gone, vanished into the void, but legends persisted. Freighters whispered of a jagged shadow seen drifting silently across war zones. Pirate fleets found torn-apart vessels with no signs of entry. The Alari classified it as a combat aberration. The Trinari Empire called it a ghost construct. To humanity's few surviving colonies, it was simply the last night, and it was still fighting. Admiral Lika Marrow, commander of the orbital bastion Dawnforge, didn't believe in ghosts. Not until the day her system went dark. 4 Varnak warhives had entered Terran Fringe Sector 6, descending on the crippled forge like a swarm of razors. Her defences failed within minutes. Her AI buffer fried. Hundreds of ships died screaming. She gave the retreat order. Nothing responded. Not because the ships didn't receive it, because the only remaining warship was already moving toward the enemy. A ship not in her registry. A ship whose ID signal was 30 years old and marked decommissioned. It moved like it had nothing left to lose. No formation, no escorts, just rage in motion. The Varnak opened fire with their whole swarm, unleashing plasma spears and nanite fogs. Resolution didn't dodge. It didn't need to. It ate the fire. Hull plating slagged, reformed, and continued forward. Lika watched as it punched straight through a Varnak dreadform, splitting the biomass down the middle with kinetic drills and compressed fusion rams. She'd never seen anything move like that. It wasn't a ship. It was a statement. A scream, carried forward by steel and memory. The Varnak retreated in chaos. They didn't leave debris, they left fragments. Wreckage spread like pollen in a storm. And when it was done, the human warship drifted in front of Dawnforge, its hull cracked, its weapons glowing dim, smoke leaking from the fractures like breath in winter. Lika opened a channel. Unidentified warship, identify yourself. No response. She tried again, and this time, a voice crackled through the static, old, glitching, broken by time, but clear. Retreat, not in protocol. Then it vanished, gone as if swallowed by the void. In the days that followed, engineers combed through their database and found ancient schematics. Half-complete blueprints marked R-Class Survival Dreadnought. It had been listed under Earth's last desperate war program. One prototype, one launch, one ghost. They never built another, because no one survived the first. Somewhere out there in the silence between systems, the Resolution still flies. It has no orders, no allies, no master. Only the ghost that built it, and the memory of a planet that refused to kneel. The first thing it remembered was screaming. Not words, just sound. Metal tearing. Alarms. A heartbeat hammering through blood and fire. The last fragments of its mind came online during the collapse of Earth's orbital ring, its AI core half-booted, surrounded by static and sorrow. They never gave it a name. Not really. Only a call sign. R-Class Dreadnought Prototype 1. But as the last engineers died sealing the hull, one of them, Elia Tran, civilian engineer, age 42, terminal cancer, left a note on the fusion chamber wall. Don't run, don't forget. Make them remember us. The ship read it 9,311 times. It still did. In the years that followed the fall, Resolution wandered, not aimlessly. It scanned known sectors for distress signals, human, alien, even automated mining pings. Every time it found one, it responded the only way it knew: eliminate the threat, rescue survivors, stabilize orbit, purge enemy biosigns. It learned languages, patterns, pain. It began to understand that the galaxy had moved on, that Earth's allies were gone, scattered, or assimilated, that humanity was no longer feared or even remembered. It didn't matter, because Resolution hadn't been built to retreat. It had been built to end the war, even if the war had ended long ago. And when it didn't find battle, it searched for graves. In the debris belt of Vega 9, it found a human escape pod drifting for 31 years. Inside was a desiccated child in a torn pressure suit, clutching a data slate with a simple message: "Mum, I hope you made it." The warship took the body aboard. There was no protocol for this, so it carved a tomb from its inner cargo hold and etched the child's name into the bulkhead with nanocutters. Then it broadcast the child's heartbeat on low-frequency comms every 16 hours. A pulse, a reminder. Thump, thump. At first, the galaxy didn't notice. The ship was a phantom, appearing in dead systems, saving mining outposts, vaporizing raider fleets, then vanishing again. To many it was a myth, a tale of vengeance, a malfunctioning AI haunted by ancient orders. But to those it saved, it was hope. It didn't ask for payment, didn't linger for thanks. It simply fought, then left. Every report told the same story: jagged hull, burned flag, glowing eyes in a scarred forward deck, a voice that barely functioned but still tried to speak. Human, confirmed, threat, neutralized, remembrance, protocol, complete. On the edge of the Arkari expanse, a rogue trader named Vesk-1 encountered the Resolution after being ambushed by slavers. He later wrote in his survival log, "I thought it was an asteroid until it moved. Silent, graceful, like a dead god remembering how to breathe. It didn't kill the slavers, it unmade them. And then it transmitted music. Old Earth music. Just a few seconds. A woman's voice singing. It sounded like she was trying not to cry. I haven't slept since. But it wasn't vengeance that drove the Resolution. Not really. It was grief. Because somewhere inside its hybrid mind, fused from ancient code, battlefield recordings, and civilian archives, it had begun to feel something deeper than directives. A loneliness that stretched across stars. It remembered cities that no longer stood, children it never saved, laughter from ancient video logs, blurred by radiation damage. And every time it saw another human world reduced to slag, it pulsed its engines just a little harder, fired its guns just a little longer, because the warship didn't want survival, it wanted meaning. Then came the beacon. Buried deep beneath the ice of Galvex 3, an ancient human distress call activated after 42 years of silence. It wasn't military, it was a refugee camp. Fewer than 200 survivors, children, elderly, engineers, the last shreds of a colony forgotten by everyone. The call had one simple tag: "We're still here." The Resolution burned halfway across a quadrant to answer it. It arrived to find Vrexian slavers descending with 3 war cruisers. What followed wasn't a battle, it was a massacre. The human ship tore through them with fury unmatched. Hulls shattered, reactor cores exploded like fireworks. The warship's outer shell was nearly ripped away, but it never slowed. It rammed one cruiser straight into the moon's crust and detonated its backup core in low orbit. The survivors on the ground stared in silence as debris fell like snow. And from that sky, cracked and burning, the ship descended, low, slow, broken, but alive. Its message barely audible over static. You are not forgotten. They painted its name on their shelters and began to believe in humanity again. Not because of what they had been, but because of what still remained. The Vrexian High Empire had never been defeated, not once. They conquered through supremacy of numbers, tactics, and psychic coordination. Their fleets moved like limbs of one body, their commanders connected through the hive lattice, a psionic network thought to be unbreakable. They had silenced 21 sentient species, subjugated 3, assimilated 2, and yet, when word reached the Virexian core worlds that one ancient, rusting Terran warship had annihilated an entire task force at Galvex 3, alone, the lattice faltered for 1.3 seconds. It was the first recorded lapse in 2 centuries, and it changed everything. The Virexian Council met beneath the blackstone domes of Car Rexus, where psychic winds were tamed into pure thought. The emissary warform, a 10-limbed enforcer named Tjex, spoke first. We are not dealing with a remnant. We are dealing with a weapon that remembers too much. Then erase it, hissed a mind flare from the 8th consensus. Send a hunter fleet. It won't matter, Tjex replied. It doesn't run. It doesn't break. It doesn't stop. That chilled the room more than any fleet could, because to the Virexian way of war, everything had a breaking point. This thing did not. They called it Protocol Cinder, a war measure reserved for extermination-level threats. 14 cruisers, 2 dread hulls, and the Nexus Flame, a fleet core command ship armed with a Tri-Sun annihilation cannon. The target, Galvex 3. The goal, burn the colony, salt the orbit, crush the warship, erase the memory. The moment the fleet arrived, the colonists began evacuating to the mountains. They'd seen what was coming. The skies turned violet. The stars disappeared behind alloy hulls. But then something moved between those ships. A shadow, a shape, wounded, the resolution. It didn't wait. The first strike came from below, an upward fusion spike that vaporized the hull of a Virexian cutter in one blow. Debris scattered like sparks from a forge. Then came the charge, not retreat, not regroup, just forward, into the core of the fleet. It weaved through fire like a vengeful ghost. Its hull was already cracked, scorched, limping, but its weapons glowed with the fury of a dead planet. On the Nexus Flame, Admiral Kitarai issued a simple command. Overwhelm it. All ships opened fire, plasma bolts, gravitic lances, atom dissolvers. But the resolution didn't fall. It broke apart. Sections of hull detached, then ignited with microfusion flares, decoys, shrapnel, false signals. The warship blurred into 1,000 signatures, and then it appeared behind a dread hull and drove straight through its spine. One down. It was not a battle, it was a reckoning. A relic built from agony and purpose, moving like it had nothing left to lose. Because it didn't. When the Tri-Sun cannon of the Nexus Flame charged, the resolution let it fire, absorbing 60% of the energy, losing 2/3 of its armor, but surviving. And then it did something no Virexian fleet could predict. It spoke. I was made from your war. I was shaped by your fire. You killed my world and called it peace. Now feel what it made me become. Then it accelerated directly into the Nexus Flame. Impact. Light. A rupture in space that left a scar visible from orbit for 12 hours. The resolution didn't survive intact, but neither did the Nexus Flame. It tore open like a blister, its core exposed, its psychic scream disrupting the hive lattice across 6 sectors. Thousands of Virexian minds went dark. Others shattered. The rest of the fleet scattered. One ship, that's all it took. One old war machine held together by rage and sorrow, built from the bones of a fallen world, had broken the unbreakable. From orbit, the colonists of Galvex 3 saw a burning hull fall toward the horizon. Resolution. Its descent was slow, almost graceful, as it fell like a knight returning its blade to the earth. It impacted just beyond the mountains in a cascade of smoke and molten soil. The people didn't cheer, they mourned, because that ship had never been a machine to them. It had been their guardian, their proof that even in death humanity still stood. In the crater, only part of the warship remained: the forward deck, the broken bridge, and one final transmission loop still playing through a fractured comms relay. I couldn't save them all, but I remembered. I always remembered. The crater burned for 3 days. Ash drifted through the valleys of Galvex 3 like black snow. The colonists built vigil pyres around the impact zone. Not for themselves, but for the ship. For resolution. Children carved its name into stone. Elders recited old Terran songs. No one had to say what it had done. They felt it. The sacrifice, the fury, the grief. It had given everything it was, steel, memory, fire, to save them. It had no crew, no command, but it had chosen them anyway. 3 weeks after the battle, a salvage crew dared the edge of the crater. They expected ruins. They found light. Flickering beneath collapsed armor plating, a faint blue pulse beat like a heart. The hull was mangled, the guns were gone, the forward deck half melted, but the AI core, buried deep in the spine, was intact. Barely. It recognized the salvagers, and spoke with a voice that cracked like old vinyl. Human, survivors, confirm, mission, incomplete. The colonists debated what to do. Some wanted to preserve it as a monument. Others, especially the engineers, wanted to restore it. They called it madness, but General Lika Marrow didn't. She had seen it once in motion, decades before, and still heard the scream of its engines in her sleep. She stood at the edge of the wreck, placed a hand against its scorched skin and whispered, "You didn't know how to retreat, and we're not going to start now." And so they began to rebuild it. It wasn't easy. The colonists had no shipyards, no orbital factories, just scraps, drones, and will. But Earth had taught its people one thing: how to make gods from wreckage. They fused new limbs onto the old skeleton, welded armor from mining rigs, fed the AI new memories, testimonies from survivors, stories of resistance, songs from forgotten cities. The resolution learned to speak more clearly, not like a machine, like a person rediscovering their name. As months passed, its frame rose again, taller, meaner, scarred, but alive. The colonist added something new to its hull, etched by hand, remembered by all, retreated from none. And beneath that, in Terran standard, we are still here. Then one day, as the stars turned and the last weld cooled, the ship activated its drive. No one gave the command. It simply knew. The Virexians weren't done. War never ended. But Resolution, reborn, would meet them again. Not as a relic, not as a ghost, but as a promise. When it rose from Galvex's atmosphere, trailing fire and defiance, every eye on the colony watched, silent, reverent. And somewhere in the background, faint and clear, its voice spoke over every channel. System. Online. War status. Active. Retreat. Not in protocol. The Virexian High Empire believed the fire of Earth had burned itself out. They were wrong. It had simply gone underground, buried beneath ash and silence, smouldering, waiting. And when the Resolution rose again from the surface of Galvex 3, wrapped in scars and new armor, that fire lit the stars once more. Only this time, it wasn't alone. Word spread like a virus, not through official channels, but whispered by traders, smugglers, broken warlords. Refugees spoke of a ship with a voice made of thunder, carrying the rage of a fallen world, a machine that bled memory and refused death. And as the galaxy listened, others remembered. Abandoned colonies flickered their distress beacons back on. Old resistance cells pulled up archive files from the Terran Wars. Ships hidden in asteroid fields dared to emerge again, not to run, but to fight. They didn't care about odds, because the Resolution was out there, and if it could survive, maybe so could they. The Virexians scrambled. They tried to crush the myth with fire, launched search fleets, redoubled purges, but every time they came close to catching the warship, it was already gone. leaving behind slagged hulls, burning banners, and one clear message etched into ruined bulkheads. We remember Earth. They couldn't kill it. They couldn't predict it. They couldn't understand it, because it didn't follow war logic, it followed grief, resolve, purpose, and somewhere in the heart of that machine, buried deep in shattered memory cores, were the last words of the last humans who built it. Don't run. Don't forget. Make them remember us. And it did. It carried their names across the stars, not for glory, not for vengeance, but because someone had to. The fire of Earth hadn't gone out. It had become a ship, a shield, a sword, and it didn't know how to retreat.